It seems like there's no end to the corruption that investigative journalists are finding at the Supreme Court, and we just learned a lot more about everyone's favorite right-wing Supreme Court justice stewing in millions of dollars of gifts and perks from secretive right-wing billionaires. We got the first round of revelations about this back in April 2023.
Private jets, lavish trips, and access to exclusive clubs, all provided to Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas for more than 2 decades by a Dallas businessman and Republican megadonor. That's according to exclusive reporting today by ProPublica.
The luxury vacations from billionaire Harlan Crow were never disclosed. And according to ProPublica, these are photos of Clarence Thomas and his wife, Ginni Thomas, with Crow and others during a trip to Indonesia back in 2019.
The luxury trips around the globe were valued in the hundreds of thousands of dollars and all went unreported on Justice Thomas's financial disclosures.
The extent and frequency of Crow's apparent gifts to Thomas have no known precedent in the modern history of the United States Supreme Court.
Then I had one of the reporters who broke the story on our podcast, Beyond Politics, and he told us about new layers of corruption that they had uncovered.
Crow paid private boarding school tuition for Justice Thomas's grandnephew. This was essentially their son, and Crow paid for boarding school tuition at 2 different schools.
As my Blue Amp channel partner Cliff Schecter put it,
Clarence Thomas, he gets vacations to Malaysia for $500,000, gets a ride on the super yacht, gets his son sent to school. God, there's got to be more.
And yup, there was more. Here's Justin Elliott again explaining what else they found.
Crow had actually purchased some real estate down in Savannah, Georgia, from Justice Thomas and his relatives. Probably the most unusual thing is that Harlan Crow now owns the house where Justice Thomas's elderly mother currently lives. He apparently does not charge her rent.
So there's a pattern here. The more we dig, the more we find. Or, as they put it in the movie The Color of Money,
it just keeps getting worse and worse, doesn't it?
Because now, the breaking news is that the ProPublica team has found even more right-wing billionaire corruption focused on, of course, Clarence Thomas. 38 total vacations paid for by ultra-wealthy right-wing activists who sent him all over the world in their private jets, including, on more than one occasion, sending an entire 737 to fetch him. A voyage on a yacht around the Bahamas, 26 private jet flights, 8 more flights by helicopter, a dozen VIP passes to big-time sporting events, luxury resorts in Florida and Jamaica, although, let's be clear, luxury resorts in Florida doesn't sound that appealing, and a standing invitation to show up anytime he wants at an exclusive golf club on the coast. All of which begs the question about these rich fat cats.
Who are those guys?
Well, I'll tell you. Harlan Crow, which sounds like the name of a Marvel supervillain, is, well, kind of a supervillain. As Cliff explained,
the guy who uses Hitler's teapot and thinks Hitler's paintings were inspiring.
The new crowd of billionaires we just learned about, who look like they could have been featured on the cover of Old Rich White Men's Monthly, include Wayne Huizenga, David Sokol, and Paul Novelli. And yes, of course they stand to benefit from their relationship with Clarence Thomas. While ProPublica has not identified any legal cases that any of them had at the court during their relationships with Clarence Thomas, they all work in industries that are significantly impacted by the court's decisions. And Clarence Thomas has admitted that he and Wayne Huizenga discussed some of the billionaires' companies. But he says their relationship was never transactional.
This is bullshit.
You know, it was just friendship.
Bullshit.
The way friends just send each other on lavish vacations, on private jets all over the globe.
Bullshit.
Totally normal, not corrupt behavior.
I'm sorry, I'm allergic to bullshit.
The whole point of ethics rules is to avoid even the appearance of corruption. And when you've got public officials benefiting financially from billionaires whose fortunes rise and fall on the Supreme Court decisions that they have pending before the court, it looks corrupt as hell. Take, for example, the deal we just found out about this summer, where Samuel Alito's wife leased land to an oil and gas firm while her husband was issuing environmental decisions that affected the company's profits. Shockingly, Samuel Alito maintains a vast investment portfolio in many industries where his rulings have a direct impact. Why the hell does he get to do that? Why doesn't he have to put all of his investments into a blind trust? I'll tell you why. Because this arrogant right-wing Supreme Court has had an attitude about all of this corruption from the beginning, that they can just ignore us, ignore the dumpster fire of open grift in their midst. The people of the United States should just shut up and not worry, because everything's fine.
Remain calm. All is well.
I'll tell you 2 things. First, I hope the reporters keep digging, because I can guarantee you there's more fire where all this smoke is coming from. Our best hope is that eventually we can shame even the Republican stooges in the U.S. Senate into passing some laws that will shut down the corruption mill. And second, none of us should buy for even a moment the idea that this whole setup isn't totally corrupt. That is what is politely known as bullshit, bullshit, bullshit.